Hello, I'm Ryan Cook, and this is Civic Tech Chat, a show that looks at the way technology, politics, and policy impacts the world around us, the tools we use, the way services are delivered, and how we talk about and set policy all shape our society. We'll gather around and have a chat about these things together and more. Either that, or maybe I'll rant about a topic for a while. Before we get started, I do want to let you all know that we've started a Discord for the podcast. There will be a link with an invite down in the episode description. Do feel free to go check that out. It's a small community right now, but hoping to grow it. It's a great way to reach out to me and let me know things that you might want us to cover, or to just hang out and talk about civic tech. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the show. Lauren, Sophia, thank you both so much for coming on to Civic Tech Chat. Could each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about what you do?
Thank you, Ryan. Hi. I'm Sophia. I'm Mexican, and I co-direct the Code for All network along with Lori, who's here with me. And my focus is mostly on funder relations and capacity building programs. But I also lead the 3 communities of practice we have in the network around disinformation, good governance, and digital citizen engagement. I've been in the civic tech ecosystem for about 4 years now. I started as part of a Mexican civic tech organization that's called Codeando Mexico, which means Code for Mexico. And in there, I focus on digital citizen engagement and open data projects. So that's basically kind of like the focus I've had along in these 4 years in civic tech.
And hi, I'm Lauren, and I'm the other co-director at Code for All with Sophia. My focus as a director is on communications and team development, and I also lead our Support Squads program. I originally became involved with civic tech through Code for San Jose, which is a Code for America brigade, and also did some work with Code for Australia before joining Code for All.
For each of you, what would you say is your personal why? The thing that drives you to get out of bed each morning, to do what you do?
I think for me getting into civic tech was mind-blowing. It was a whole new universe. So my background is in social sciences, so I wasn't really close to tech before getting involved with Codeando. However, I've always focused on community engagement and citizen participation, so that became some sort of like the thread I started to follow, but only adding the digital component. So having collaborated with grassroots organizations previously, I understood the challenges and misconceptions that exist around tech as a potential weapon, especially like in those areas. But I felt that civic tech could be that bridge, that thing that connects more traditional organizations with technology and like with using and having this potential use of technology as a tool instead of seeing it as only a threat to make their projects better, to be more efficient. So I don't know, civic tech is a space that invites you to be creative and think on new possibilities, always having collaboration in the back of our heads. So I think that's one of the things that hit me the most and that drives me now as much.
Yeah, and for me, I would say that since I first stumbled into civic tech, I've just sort of felt at home in it. I love working on creative projects. I love tackling issues that feel important to me in some way. And I think civic tech, at least in my experience, has offered a space to do these things in a way that feels quite welcoming, relaxed, and supportive. So I love the possibilities that come with civic tech and with having that type of space. I've also really enjoyed meeting people from different places who do civic tech work and just feeling that special sort of connection that comes with having a shared interest. And so I find it exciting that my job involves creating spaces for others to have that type of experience.
For folks that aren't familiar with your organization, Code for All, can we talk a bit about what the organization is all about?
Yeah, of course. So Code for All is the largest civic tech network in the world. Our purpose is to bring people together who are doing similar civic tech type work in different parts of the world so that they can connect, share ideas, share knowledge and resources. So basically, there are a lot of different civic tech organizations around the world. We have Code for Pakistan, Code for Japan, Civic Tech Sweden, Codando Mexico. And our job is to help connect and bring them together. It's a member-driven network, so civic tech organizations can join the network as members. And as a member organization, they help shape Code for All and are also given opportunities for shared funding and to join in on events and workshops that help support their work.
So one of the things that your organization does, again, Code for All, is that you put together this annual summit, of which there's another rendition of it coming up from the 27th through the 30th this month. What sort of importance does the summit have for the Code for All network that was just mentioned?
So the first Code for All summit happened a few years after the network was officially founded, and it was this opportunity for members to get together once a year, talk about the projects each organization was doing, generate network strategies, and in a way, also, it was a space for members to decide which were the topics and projects that we should focus as a network. So even though we constantly share what our members are doing through the newsletter on a daily basis, it can be complicated to know the specifics of the projects each organization is working on. So the summit was a good way to have a deeper update, to say so, and generate also new projects together or share feedback on the things that we're doing. So the summit has always been this space to, let's say, like, we recharge our energies, and in a way we find new ways to collaborate.
I believe this is the second time that this event has needed to run as a fully remote event. I believe the first time being last year for very apparent reasons, given the state of the world. What lessons have you learned along the way as you've done these sort of large remote events?
Yeah, we've definitely learned some lessons. Last year, our summit was actually supposed to take place in Poland, but of course, things were derailed, like you mentioned, with COVID, and we had to sort of very quickly, like everyone else, adapt to the change, and we sort of threw together the summit in much less time than we would have otherwise. So one thing we've done this year is, of course, we had more time to prepare, so we've made sure to take advantage of that by starting early. We were also Zoom bombed last year in our very first summit session, which was quite distressing. So security-wise, we've made some changes. And we actually realized by sort of being forced into this format that it really works for our network, and that more people are able to be part of the summit compared to, when meeting in person, there are the challenges of travel costs, sorting out visas and other obstacles that just aren't there when meeting online. And of course, there are plenty of other obstacles, but we've sort of learned that having this event online works well for Code for All.
You mentioned having to respond to being Zoom bombed. What sort of security things have you put into place with Zoom to try to prevent that from happening again?
I think the thing is we just were a bit naive last year starting off. So we had started off with no protection. We actually shared an open Zoom link all over social media because the thought was it would be really easy for people to just join in, especially if they were new to civic tech and just wanted to tune in to see if it was something that they were interested in. And then we just realized right away that was a mistake. And so last year we changed everything after the very first session. When that happened, we created all new Zoom links and we put passwords on top of them and made it so you had to register to get the link. And then it actually caused other problems where it was a bit difficult for people to find everything that they needed to get to each session. So this year we've just sort of found, I think, a middle ground there where hopefully it will be easy to join, but it'll also be safe from that happening again.
Looking around about the event, I saw that it's focused on a few key topic areas, including open versus closed tech in government, democracy and elections, disinformation and fake news, power dynamics in tech, Can you talk a bit about the processes that the organizing team went through to make those choices?
Yeah, for sure. So the way we chose our themes is we first took a look at current events happening around the world relating to civic tech. And we also looked at the themes of projects that our member organizations were working on. And from there, we created a long list of themes and then asked the community to tell us which themes they wanted to see at Summit. And the 4 themes that you mentioned are what we ended up with. So it was a mix of sort of looking at the current landscape of things and also asking people what they want.
Something that you both mentioned to me as we were kind of chatting to prepare for the interview is that some portion of the topic choice is a reflection of how network priorities change over time as maybe one thing becomes more urgent, something else becomes less urgent. Can we talk a bit about how those sorts of changes influence the choice?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one really striking example is how last year a big theme in our summit was the civic tech response to COVID, which was very relevant at the time. And although it's still very relevant today, I think it's a topic that to many might feel a bit more exhausting than inspiring to discuss in this particular context than at this time. Whereas last year it sort of felt unthinkable to not make it one of the themes. And the themes that we've ended up with this year, though they're all different, they all sort of tie into each other by a thread that's, I would say, somewhere in the realm of truth, transparency, and how decisions are made. And we believe these themes are all very relevant at this time for people all over the world. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see which themes we end up with next year. It's not something we would be able to come up with now because we don't yet know what will be most relevant a year from now.
So I definitely understand if this is a difficult question to answer, perhaps the most difficult question of this interview. But is there a topic that each of you is most excited about?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, but I would say that for me, power dynamics is the topic I'm not most interested in. It also has really great sessions, so that I think they're going to put the conversation in the center around different perspectives within tech beyond the traditional Western approach. So I think it's a space that considers new narratives and groups that are usually excluded, and that gets me really excited.
I'm actually also most excited for power dynamics in tech. I think it's a really interesting and relevant topic, and it can go in a lot of different directions. Also, sort of, I'm interested in it because a lot of what's true in the general tech industry, I would say, is reflected in civic tech, whether we want that to be the case or not. And so I think it's important to be aware of and talk about these things.
I've gathered that representing global diversity well is something that's been on your minds. How have you all approached holding to that value as this event has been being organized?
So we're consciously trying to have diversity of participants and regions in the different summit sessions, but also we're trying to make the sessions available to the different time zones of our members. That sometimes is a bit complicated. I think that's one of the reasons we came up with the idea this year of doing recorded asynchronous sessions. That way it would be easier for people in different places to look around and not miss a thing. So time differences are challenging to homologate, and sometimes no matter how much you try, there are regions that will have access to fewer sessions because it depends a lot on the facilitator's availability. So yeah, that's one of our efforts on trying to approach diversity, and that's something that we're trying to reflect in both our content and facilitators, but as well as in our audiences.
As a follow-up to that, you mentioned the challenge of time zones there. I imagine that then impacts, your thoughts for how you set up a schedule as far as like who's going to speak when, that sort of thing. Is that something where the time zone placement based on say like where the speaker is based off of? Is there like an agreed upon band that y'all have for the event more generally? Can you talk a bit about that time zone challenge?
Yeah, sure. So it depends a lot on the facilitators' availability. So what we ask them is for them to like fill out some sort of like like chart where they can put their schedule and the hours they have available. And from that on, I wish I could show you our spreadsheet, but we have some sort of like imagine like this wall with tons of clocks that have different time zones. Well, we have that, but without the clocks, like with the physical clocks. So what we try to do is, okay, we check on each hour where the facilitator is available, and we see, okay, how many, what time is it in this region, what time is it in this region, what time is it in this region, and we try to accommodate things that the way that, for example, like Southeast Asia can participate in as many sessions as people in Europe, for example, or people in, I don't know, Latin America can participate in as many sessions as people in, I don't know, South Africa. So yeah, like we try to homologate that part, like, or try to have the same amount of sessions for each region. But it is definitely a challenge because it all depends a lot on the availability of facilitators, and also there's like we have to acknowledge that there's going to be there are going to be sessions where not everyone is going to be able to participate. We have huge time differences, for example, between the Pacific coast, like California and all that part, and I don't know, with Melbourne, for example. So yeah, like we try to accommodate and like jumping around one region and the other. I think those are the ones that are more extreme. And yeah, as I mentioned, like that's why we are trying to find new asynchronous formats that are available for everyone, and that you don't really need to be awake at 7 a.m. to join a session or to stay up late until 9 p.m. to join, but you can check out later the content that we're gonna have and not miss a thing.
Oh, you mentioned that there's going to be asynchronous availability for the content. Do you have a sense for where that's going to be placed? Is there like a particular platform y'all have chosen to host that on, or is that still in flight a bit?
No, we have a YouTube channel. We're gonna share the information around it. But we have a YouTube channel. Last year what we did is that we recorded some of the sessions and we uploaded it there. And that was really good. That was something that people gave us a lot of good feedback around. So we're gonna upload the asynchronous sessions that we have. We're calling them lightning talks. So those are like from 5 to 7 recorded videos around projects of the network and also projects that people have submitted to participate. And so they're also like very short, it's like easier to see and to understand, and it's like a brief scope of the project. And those ones are going to be uploaded in our YouTube channel, and they're also going to be uploaded in our website. So they're going to be there so people can check it out.
I imagine that accessibility is probably something that's been on your minds. That's something that can be a challenge, whether you're talking about virtual mediums or, being somewhere and trying to do an event in person. With y'all doing this virtual event, what sort of steps have you been taking to try to address that accessibility challenge?
We're very happy to share that this year we are working with engagement and accessibility expert Mark Renja, who is program manager at Code for Africa, and he's giving us feedback and recommendations on how to make the sessions more comfortable and accessible. So as Lauren mentioned before, the summit is an iterative process where we are learning from our mistakes from our past and the things that we haven't considered before, especially now being online. So there will be things that we may not be able to implement this year, but the idea of working with Mark is also to generate resources around the topic so that the core team and our members can use every time they organize an event or an online session. So we're thinking about creating like a guide, like an accessibility guide for events that can be easily shared within our community.
In addition to the challenges we've talked about there, I imagine a challenge that's maybe unique to this event, given the global nature of it, is thinking of ways to present information in a way that's available in multiple languages. How have you all been responding to that challenge?
Oh yeah, the language is a challenge. The multiple languages is a challenge in the network, as you say. So for the summit in particular, this year we will include sign language for our panels and workshops. We're working around, that's one of the actions we have been working with Mark. We don't have at the moment the resources to offer simultaneous translations in multiple languages, especially because we have a lot of members and that also means a lot of languages. But it's something that we definitely have in our to-do list for next year. And aside from the summit, we have been trying to incorporate multiple languages in a lot of what we do. For example, our member organizations have helped us translate blog articles, especially our Black Lives Matter statement was translated into Polish, Japanese, German, French, and Spanish. We'll also be using a translation plugin on our new website, and having code for all information available in multiple languages is a big priority. So we're currently taking the first steps to address that language diversity, but we're aware that it's going to be a long process.
That is totally understandable. I imagine that it's very time-consuming and resource-intensive to attempt to address. So I'll be curious to, if we have another one of these conversations next year, for the next event, I'll be curious to see what new iterations y'all have done as you've learned from this event.
Yeah, that would be great.
So folks have likely been listening to this conversation at home, and they might be thinking to themselves, hey, I am kind of into what they're talking about with this event. I would like to either watch it or attend some of the synchronous sessions. How should they go about trying to do that?
If you're interested in attending, we would love to have you there. And you can find the information on our website. You can find the summit agenda there, which is codeforall.org. And from there, you can browse sessions and then register for free on Eventbrite for the sessions that you want to attend. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you'll be notified when the Summit Lightning Talks that Sophia was talking about earlier are released.
And worry not, dear listeners. I will have a link to both the website that was mentioned as well as to their YouTube channel in the episode description. So whether you're going to the Civic Tech Chat website and seeing this, or you're looking at it on your podcast app, there should be a link in either place. As we head to the tail end of our conversation, a tradition we have on the podcast is to leave some space for our guests to have concluding thoughts. Basically, the sorts of things they'd like you to think about as we're leaving the conversation. So for this topic, the Code for All Summit, and this conversation, what would you all like the audience to leave this thinking about?
Well, check our website, check our summit agenda, and register. I think that's the biggest one. Like, go check out the things that we're gonna have, and also, be part of that community, be part of that summit. I think you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna see very interesting sessions. We're trying to make it really, really engaging. So yeah, check our website. Check our website, please. And I think I would only highlight also that the summit is in itself an iterative process, as we have mentioned this before along this talk, and it builds up from ideas and feedback of our community. So it's very important also for us to listening from your experiences as a participant, and that's also going to help us build a better summit next year. And we want to thank our members and our community in general for being part of the design process with their thoughts and their feedback. And also we want to thank them for their participation in the sessions, of course. And a quick shout out to our funders who are making this effort possible too.
Lauren, Sophia, again, thank you both for coming on to Civic Tech Chat.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
You can follow us on Twitter using the handle @CivicTechChat, visit us on the web at civictech.chat, or subscribe to us for content updates wherever it is you download your podcasts.